Hello, my friends, and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Why do you believe the mass media? Is it because they tell you the truth? Is it because that's the only place where you get your information? Why do you believe them? I personally don't believe anything they say. Why? Unless I can verify. And how do I verify? With the enemies. So if I have, let's say, some Ukrainian media telling me A, I check with the Russians and see if they confirm the A. If they say B, then I verify the B with someone else, and so on. I don't believe anything these guys are saying. Why? As long as I can verify it. How can I verify it? With them. Unless I have some inside information, which, it's hard to get. So, if let's say one article, let's say in this case Ukrainska Pravda or Reuters, tell you that the Chinese consulate in Odessa was struck by a Russian missile. Do you believe that? I don't. I don't know if it was struck by a Russian missile or by a Ukrainian missile. I don't know that when the Ukrainians were attacked by the Russians, the Ukrainians did not hit the area of the Chinese consulate to create problems between Chinese and the Russians. I don't know that. And I don't believe them from the get-go. Is it possible? Of course. Of course it's possible. Let me tell you and show you an article here. And I just ask questions. But from the get-go, I don't believe anything these guys are telling me. So let's go. And this article comes from, for instance, Ukrainska Pravda. Chinese Foreign Ministry on the strike on Odessa. Part of the wall and windows were smashed in Consulate General. So the Russians launched an attack on Odessa with some missiles. And the Russians destroyed some buildings around the consulate, the Chinese consulate. And the Chinese guys in the consulate say some windows were broken, were smashed, and some walls were cracked or something. Well, how do you know, I'm talking about you, how do you know those were cracked by the Russian missiles and not by the Ukrainian missiles? How do you know? The answer is you don't. Is there a way for you to find out? No. There's a way of you to read about that from sources. Who are those sources? Those sources are the Ukrainian sources. Those guys are the people that say, well, there were some missiles and those missiles smashed around the embassy. The Russians attacked Odessa. Were those the Russian missiles who cracked those windows or cracked those walls? I don't know. Just because they say so, it doesn't mean it happened. Let me tell you how things work in this kind of situation. I'm the Ukrainians, and I'm waiting. And I say, okay, I'm just giving a scenario. You take it or you don't take it. It's up to you. What I'm trying to do here is not to say it didn't happen or it happened. My point is here, don't believe everything that is fed to you. That's all in this article or this video here. The Ukrainians are waiting. Okay, next time when these guys are hitting Odessa, we're gonna hit the Chinese consulate. And when that's gonna happen, we're gonna blame the Russians for doing it. Therefore, the Chinese, if there will be some victims, the Chinese will stop supporting the Russians. How about we do that? Do you think that's possible? I'm 100% certain it is possible. Is it probable? 90% or even more. It's a war over there. Everything is possible. Any kind of crime is possible. So when I tell you the Russians bombarded, which is true, Odessa, those missiles that hit around the consulate, the Chinese consulate, I don't know if they were Ukrainians or Russians. Maybe the Ukrainians smashed and maybe they wanted to even hit the Chinese consulate. How do I know that? If I read Ukrainska Pravda. Do you expect them to tell you the truth? I don't. I'm not saying that did not happen. I'm just raising the doubts, the awareness that don't buy everything these guys are telling you. And then you have another article coming from, obviously, the other weasels, Reuters. And Reuters says, Three killed, not Chinese, it's comma. Chinese consulate damaged in Russian attack on Ukraine's port city. Okay, all right? And this is not the Chinese consulate. This is a picture, but it's not it. Okay, rescuers work at the site of an administrative building heavily damaged by a Russian missile strike. They say, if the Russians will say tomorrow, no, it was not our strike, that was the Ukrainian strike. How can you or I verify that? Amid Russian attack in Ukraine, Odessa, Ukraine, blah, blah, blah. Russian airstrike hit southern Ukrainian port cities, correct? Russia says it carried out retaliatory strikes, correct. Mykolaiv, Ukraine, at least 3 people were killed. That's one sentence. And then we go to the next one. They try to link it together for idiots to think it's the 3 Chinese. And a Chinese consular building was damaged on Thursday in a third successful night of airstrikes on southern Ukrainian port cities, Ukrainian officials said. So, again, maybe they did, maybe then they don't. My point is, how do I know? And this is an example. Let's say tomorrow we find out that Moscow was attacked by some drones. I don't know if they're Ukrainian drones or if they're Russian drones. Neither you. You don't know that. It's just the Russians report, hey, 5 drones, 5 Ukrainian drones, click, click, they tell you, attacked Moscow. And they hit some commercial buildings, some how do you call it, residential buildings. They tell you that. Do you believe them? I don't. It could have been Russian drones. It could have been some Ukrainian drones and at the same time some Russian drones launched in the same time and destroyed. They say, see, the Ukrainians attacked again Moscow. The civilians. Again, these guys. The Russians destroyed, almost killed some Chinese. My point is this for this video. We actually don't know who launched what. We're told by those guys. They can tell me whatever they want. You don't have an alternate source of reliable information to tell you the truth. So rather I can say, well, I don't believe it. I don't think. I thought it was, I think it was Ukrainian. Maybe, no, it's possible to be Ukrainian. I'm not saying it was. It's possible to be Ukrainian. Well, the Russians attacked, yeah, but at the same time, the Ukrainians hit the Chinese consulate to create problems. Or, hey, it was the Ukrainian drones attacking Moscow. No, I think it was the Russian drones also attacking Moscow to make it as if those guys are terrorists. Is it possible? Very possible in a war. So this is just an example of how things are, how we depend on them to tell us whatever they want. And my problem is we do not have the power to verify it. We do not. I don't. You don't. You're going to read that and say, oh my God, those Russians attacked almost hit the Chinese consulate. Like the NATO alliance, which in that case was the United States, killed those Chinese in Belgrade in 1999. See, the Russians did the same thing. How do I know that? I don't. And I don't believe the mass media anyway, from the get-go. Well, that's just my take of things. You can take it however you want. You can say, oh, this guy is crazy, he's paranoid, then you don't believe anyone. Correct, you don't believe anyone. Believe after you verify. And verification is done with at least 3 independent sources. That's in the intelligence community, okay? Intelligence community says that you verified with 3 independent sources. Okay, independent sources is not CNBC, CNN, and MSNBC. Those are not 3 independent sources. Those are one source coming from 3 channels. Okay, got that right? Okay, I think you understand what I'm saying. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just.